Hello, one and all, and welcome to the podcast we call The Fantastival with myself, Steve Nussbaum. In the podcast, where I invite my guests to come on and talk to me all about their musical tastes, their memories, their experiences, and they get to collate their fancy festivals, which I have christened Fantastivals. We are now in March. I hope everyone is well, and it was great to meet some Fantastival podcast legends last week as I went to the Shed Project gig in King's Cross last week. It was awesome to meet Roy from the Shed Project. It was awesome to meet Adi Hansen. It was awesome to meet Ross from Adored, and plus meeting Moby Tanner was an absolute honour, and I look forward to hopefully meeting many more of you very soon. And before we start this one, I just want to say a massive thank you to my guest on episode 120. That was Danny Tipping from The Kind. I'm looking forward to hearing their new album Timelines, which comes out on Friday the 10th of March. So that was 120. And I am so excited to introduce the guest on the 121st episode of the Fantastival Podcast. I had the pleasure of seeing this gent live back at the end of last year, and he absolutely blew my socks off. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's singer-songwriter, acoustic solo performer, it's the one and only, it's Mr. Jon Gomm.
Hi, Steve. It's nice to meet you, mate. Nice to be here.
Likewise, I'm so happy I've been able to get you on the Fantastival Podcast. And I can't...
So, which gig were you at last year, mate?
I went to the one in Camden. I think it was late November, early December, in the small hall somewhere. It wasn't a venue.
So the folk centre.
Yeah, and there was like a downstairs. It was all like chilled.
Well, that was. I was not expecting that venue to be what it was. When I saw, I can't remember the name of the venue now, which is really rude. I don't know, but it's quite a long name. It's the early music.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Folk and early music. College.
It's like the hall of someone. It's someone's hall.
Yeah, but it's I assumed that was like a legacy name. You know how it's quite cool when people open a venue now. They like to keep the name of the original thing. Like you have the Deaf Institute in Manchester, for example, which has just kept the name of what the building was before. So that was quite. So I assumed that's what it was, but it actually still is. I went in there and there's just people having like clog dancing lessons, and there's like a library of folk music, and it was really fascinating and interesting. But I was pretty baffled by the fact that it was the venue I was playing in. It's happened quite a lot since COVID. There's a lot of venues have shut, and the venues that haven't are overwhelmed with people wanting to do gigs because there was still that period off, and that's still a hangover from that. So, I've been playing a few places that are different to where I would usually play. It's a bit confusing. It had free parking though, for me anyway, in London.
Oh, amazing.
Quite often, even if you're you'd be amazed how famous an artist can be, but they can't actually park outside the fucking venue they're playing at. There's nowhere for them to do it.
Well, I'm glad you got free parking, especially in Camden, because parking space is like gold mines in Camden. So, Jon, I'm so happy that you're on the podcast. I can't wait to hear about all your musical tastes and how you got into music. But before we do, I always make a point of asking my guests how they've been. It's been, a crazy 3 years since COVID and lockdown, and I always like to ask my guests from a mental health perspective how they've been. So, Jon, I know you've been, I know you post a bit on social about your mental health. So, mate, how are you, Jon?
I'm good right now. Actually, this moment, I'm feeling pretty weird. I've been through a period of really intense, what is the technical term is hyperfocus, and that's not just like a slang term. So I have ADHD, and it's a common thing that people will hyperfocus. So it's known that people with ADHD can't really control where their focus is, their attention. It's attention deficit disorder is what it's called. And that's quite a weird thing for people to get their head around. But it doesn't mean that you necessarily can't focus your attention. It just means you can't control it. So when you do it, it can be unbelievably intense. So quite a lot of people might have had an experience where they get really lost in something. Like, a lot of people have it with video games, I think. So I hear about, I'm not really a gamer, but I hear about people playing like a video game. They're playing for like 5-6 hours and then they don't realise. And then suddenly they realise they're incredibly thirsty and haven't done anything else because they've just been so focused on this thing. So that happens to people with ADHD quite a lot. And I've been hyper-focused on doing some recording, and I haven't done any production for a long time. I've not produced my own music for a long time. I just wanted to have a go. And massive learning curve, learning loads of new tech and stuff and software. So just been super, super focused on that. And as a result, I haven't really slept. So I'm going to bed some nights at it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. And I suddenly realise, oh shit, I better sleep. And yeah, so I've been in a bit of a state because of that, but it's not a bad thing. It's really exciting. So it's cool, but it is fucking exhausting. So yeah, but I've generally been pretty good recently by my incredibly poor mental health standards, because, you know, I've had really bad bouts of quite acute depression quite often, really pretty regularly all my entire life. So yeah, but there is always, like, the one positive thing, because I would say that, it sounds really bleak. So the one positive thing that I always tell people, my favourite thing to remember is with things like depression or anxiety or any kind of mood, or sadly happiness as well, they're all temporary. That's what a mood is. It's a temporary state. It's a fluctuating state. You can't be permanently in a mood. That's not what a mood is. That's just your personality. So if you are depressed, then it will pass. It always does. You know, so just hang in there. Really, is the only thing that I always tell people who are struggling. That's the one generic thing that you can say to anybody, is just hang in there, because it will pass. It can't stay like that forever. That's not what a mood is. So yeah,
that's great advice, and it's great to hear, like, you know, it will pass, and the way you speak about your mental health. So John, I mean, how did you first get into music and playing the guitar?
I was very, very young. So when I was 2 years old, all I wanted for Christmas was a guitar. So my mum couldn't find a guitar for a 2-year-old. So she went to the local music store in Blackpool, where I'm from, and bought a ukulele from there, but quite a posh one. It was quite a good quality one. Hawaiian, which is the traditional home of the ukulele. It was a handmade Hawaiian ukulele. And yeah, so she gave me that, but I didn't know how to play it, and she didn't give me any lessons, so I just stuck with it. And then I think when I was about 4 or 5, on my kind of, 100th time of trying to have a go at playing it and not having any idea what I was doing, I just got really frustrated with it and just marched it out to the driveway and smashed it to pieces. And it was at that point that my mum, being my mum, she probably did tell me off, but rather than just thinking, okay, well, that's the end of that, she thought, maybe you need some lessons, maybe he actually wants to play this. And, so yeah, then I started getting guitar lessons from when I was really little. So yeah, it was good. The only reason I know anything about what that ukulele is because there's a couple of photographs, including Christmas when I was 2. And I put one on the internet once, and you can actually see through the sound hole of the ukulele, and it's got the label inside, and you can see the maker's name. And somebody posted on Facebook or whatever, Instagram, when I posted that picture, wow, John, you should have kept that, man. That'd be worth quite a lot of money right now.
You're channeling your inner Pete Townsend from a very early age then.
Yeah. I mean, or whoever smashed. Kurt Cobain used to smash up his instruments, but he quite often musicians will change guitars during you'll see bands change guitar. The guitarist will change guitar during the gig. So before the last song, when he knew he was going to smash it up, he'd switch to a different guitar that wasn't one of his handmade objects, because he used to make his own guitars, or kind of just cobble his own guitars together. So yeah, he used to get like a poor dummy guitar for the last song, and that one would just that poor guitar. I'm really excited. I'm going on stage with Nirvana. Kurt Cobain's playing me. Oh, wait a minute. Oh no, what's happening? Yeah, but I think that's quite a good approach.
And I guess in terms of guitar lessons, I mean, was it a hard thing for you to learn? Because obviously, knowing you now and your style and how advanced and how you play the guitar, I mean, how did your kind of guitar technique then evolve from the basic, I guess, chords to tab and in?
Yeah, I struggle with everything I ever do, really. So I just worked really, really hard, but it didn't come naturally to me playing a musical instrument. I can remember I couldn't keep time, like, at all. I mean, I was like, 5 or whatever, having lessons. But when my daughter was 5, I know that she could keep time, she could dance and be in clapping time with the music, and I apparently couldn't. And my mum can't, and she's a grown adult, so it's definitely believable. So my teacher made me march up and down the room to a metronome, and I had to do that at home. I remember doing it with my dad, making me do it, and just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and as I marched around the room to try and get the kind of physical sensation of rhythm into my body. And imagine if they hadn't done that. Imagine if I hadn't learned that, at that age, I'd be screwed right now. But my life would be so different. So I'm very grateful to learn that. But yeah, I've struggled with everything. I always relate it to sport. There's some kind of athlete, or it's good with sports like football or whatever, where some guys are just completely gifted. They just don't seem to have to try. But it doesn't always end well for those guys, because they sometimes don't work hard, or they don't like working hard. And that's just, because they don't work hard, they've been able to get away with it up to that point. But it doesn't matter how talented somebody is, they've got to put the work in. And there's a lot of kind of professional superstar sports people out there who say they don't believe they have any talent. They just have always worked and worked and worked since they were a kid, and practiced and practiced. So, yeah, that's definitely my end of the spectrum.
And then, was it always the plan for you to kind of be a solo artist? Did you do like the team thing, going in bands, or did you just think that is not for me? Yeah,
nothing's planned. I've all just ended up doing this. It's never been planned. It's been forced by what I can manage to deal with, really. So, like the solo thing is because I couldn't really be in a band, because I can't really communicate with people that well. So I can communicate on a social level. I've kind of learned how to do that since I was a kid, like anybody, whatever. But it doesn't necessarily come naturally to me. But when something is very important to me, like if I'm really emotional about a subject, then that ability to kind of communicate in a socially acceptable way goes completely out the fucking window. And I will just be incredibly blunt, which is my natural state of being. And people don't necessarily react very well to that. And it's quite common that people with ADHD or with kind of neurodiversity will be in bands with other people who are the same. But that itself can be pretty tricky, So, it's what I really needed at some point, I guess, was to find people to be in a band with who were the most kind of placid, just malleable people ever, who would just do exactly what I told them. But again, I wouldn't really want that. What's the point of being in a band? You might as well just be on your own. So, yeah, just solo is the way for me. And it's like, even practically in terms of traveling and stuff, I'm much better traveling alone. It suits me much better to do that, yeah.
So I guess to be a solo artist, you've got to have a pretty good knack for writing your own material. So, how have you found that process? Was that something that's come easy to you, or is that, again, something that you've had to work on and really develop?
I don't know. I certainly do work on stuff in quite a painstaking way when I'm writing, so I don't. It's kind of complicated. Yeah, I've always loved. So my background, kind of as a person since I was a kid, has always been to be interested in words and art in general. So I like to draw and paint, and I like poetry, and I like just reading poetry, which I don't know if that many people do these days, or trying to get my head around poetry as well. I sometimes fathom where somebody's coming from, and I like kind of beautiful writing. I like clever use of words, but also words which just using words to kind of find meaning that's different to what the words might normally mean, which is, I don't know, sounds confusing, but there's a way that you can kind of penetrate people's emotions with words. And basically, if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be in advertising, coming up with emotive button-pushing slogans to try and make you buy like a car and feel like emotionally invested in a car that you don't own. I'd probably be quite good at that.
So you've had 4 forgive me if I'm wrong, you've had 4 studio albums so far.
Is that right?
From 2003.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's pretty slack, isn't it? Yeah.
I wouldn't. Everyone goes at their own pace, which I think has got to be appreciated. But the music industry, from 2003 onwards, has changed massively, right? So with hypertension in 2003, there's no social media, or it's a very back to the wall thing then. And these days, it's such a big thing.
What's changed is that in 2003, I was completely independent and completely DIY artist, and I wouldn't have wanted to sign to a label, because you'd either sign to a tiny label, which I'd rather kind of do it on my own, or just because, that's the nature of my personality, it works better like that for me, or you sign to a label that's corporate owned, even if it's a small label that's corporate owned, and then you can lose a lot of power and have a lot of expectations on you. It becomes about numbers and stuff. What's changed now is that a lot of the mainstream industry has adopted the way of working of DIY musicians. I don't think that Facebook would exist if it wasn't for bands, like DIY bands and artists, because it was the way that we used like really, really early social media that wasn't even meant to be social media to try and get our music out to people and get people to go to stuff or listen to stuff, that really kind of created communities, probably more than any other like field of human endeavor. It was probably musicians doing that. It seemed that way anyway. So yeah, it's kind of pre-Web 2.0, pre-social media. It was kind of artists doing that. And then the way that DIY artists have always communicated with their audience in a really direct way, mainstream artists have adopted the same way of working, and they're under enormous pressure to do that as well. So, whereas once upon a time, like somebody signed to a big label would be under a lot of pressure to sell a lot of records. Now they're equally under a lot of pressure just to put stuff on Instagram, basically, or TikTok. So yeah, it's that's a weird kind of pressure. That's quite intense and quite intimate and invasive, really, sometimes. So yeah, it's the industry has changed a lot, but it's actually probably an easier place for me to work now because I understand it better now.
I guess you must have been on MySpace, right? Because MySpace was...
Yeah.
I remember MySpace being like the first kind of place you could go, and as an unsigned artist, you could put tracks on and people could listen to it and feed back on your tracks. I'm thinking, this is amazing.
It was awesome. It was so mad, and you had to kind of doctor your own MySpace. You had to kind of hack the code for it to make it different colours and look different. Otherwise, it would just be like the stock page.
Yeah.
But you could kind of hack the back end of it because it was really kind of badly made as a website. But it wasn't originally intended to be what it became. I think it was just, when people send you like an email Christmas card with like an animation on it or something. You ever had one of those?
Yeah. Still get them.
So that's what kind of MySpace was originally. It was like a place where you could send people like greetings cards, like animated cards and stuff. That's what MySpace was. And then it kind of evolved into a social network just because users realized you could use it that way. It's the same with so much stuff like, so file sharing was a big thing, back in late 90s, early 2000s, where people would illegally, download stuff. And I used to put my stuff on Napster, like my music on Napster. I used to put it on there so people could download it. And I used to do that for two reasons. One was so that people would discover it, and the other one was because I uploaded it so that I controlled that music, because if I took it down as a host, it might no longer be easy for people to get. So I was like the main source that people would be file sharing it from, so I could actually remove it if I wanted to. And a lot of artists got really, like my contemporaries were really mad about file sharing. They couldn't believe how many times one of their albums had been like illegally downloaded and how much money they'd technically lost. But I would often say to these people, well, you're somebody who, like me, has only sold any of those albums that you have sold because you upload stuff to YouTube and people discover you that way or through social media. So it's very much a double-edged sword. And now we've got like Spotify and Apple Music and all the different streaming platforms, which are basically file sharing, but you don't actually have to download it. Well, you're not allowed to download it to your device, although you do download it because otherwise you won't be able to hear it. But you don't keep it. You stream it, as it's called. But it is downloading. It just means that you don't get to own the actual file. But yeah, so you stream it, and it looks still just like basically Napster with graphics. it's the same as those file sharing sites, and that's where it came from. So a lot of these things are kind of organically grown, and Napster wasn't created by people who just wanted to make money out of piracy, and nobody really did make very much money out of it. It was created by people who wanted to be able to get hold of rare and unusual music and just have a massive, vast music collection or whatever, So, it's an interesting thing. A lot of these things have been kind of co-opted in a way which now makes them impenetrable to musicians. So Spotify to me is a really bad example of how, like, something that evolved because of musicians and music lovers has then been turned, like they've copied the idea and it's gradually, become something that we actually can't access, that's just owned. And we can upload our music there, but we can't control it, really, and we can't really profit from it, probably less than we could profit from file sharing, because, we don't get the extra money. It's not really a fan-oriented thing. So anyway, yeah, that one's a bit sad.
That is a bit sad. So, I mean, you talk about organically growing. Is that kind of how your music, I guess, is that how you perceive your music career has gone, in terms of you've kept playing, you've kept posting videos on YouTube, you keep releasing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I had a viral video quite a long time ago now, but it wasn't out of nothing. It was very much kind of, I think you can get kind of a critical mass, and then something becomes viral. I mean, you can just have something that goes freakishly viral as well. But yeah, I'm quite lucky in that, my kind of most popular songs on the internet are not just some kind of, they're songs that I like, and they're songs that I love, and I'm happy to still play them and perform them and stuff. It's not like nowadays I know so many people who make music, and they make video content, and it'll be viral video content. So they'll do funny stuff like, what would it sound like if I did this to my guitar? Like, I'll fill it with water or whatever, and then they'll play it and see what it sounds like filled with water, or something. That's a real one that I saw very recently, which is why I mention it. It's just, it's really depressing. It's really, really depressing, because it'll go viral for the same reason that anything stupid kind of goes viral, because most people are just annoyed that you've made it, So it's, I'm glad that age of the internet didn't exist kind of 10 years ago, when it was just full of clickbait. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, so Passion Flower, obviously, I think is the video you're referring to, right? And that was back
that's my most popular one, yeah. And it's like, so when I released that, I've got loads of mates in bands and stuff, and so I was telling people locally that I know in bands that I saw at gigs, or just on our local music message board online that we had, that I was thinking about releasing a single, which I'd never done. So they were like, "Oh, yeah, John, that's a good idea. Why not? You should release a single. There's no reason why not." I said, "Yeah, just, because I really like singles myself. I don't have to do albums all the time. I just release a single like you guys do in your pop band, your indie bands or whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, why shouldn't you?" And then I would say to them, "Yeah, I've actually got a song in mind. It's a new song that I've written that I think I'm going to release as my first single." And they would say, "Oh, John, what's it like? What's this song like?" And I would say, "Well, it's 7 minutes long, and it starts with a guitar solo that's about a minute long, and it's about a plant." And they're like, they'd say, like, one guy, a friend of mine, literally said to me, "John, look, why do you always have to do this? We all want nothing but the best for you, mate. Why do you always have to sabotage everything that you do?" And, they said, nobody's going to play that. You're never going to get any traction with that. And obviously nobody did. I sent it to radio stations and stuff, and nobody's going to fucking play that. I even made an edit, but it was still 5+ minutes. And it's just, nobody's going to play it. So, but thankfully, I was able to get an audience for it kind of online, which is quite a meritocratic way of doing it. And yeah, it's cool. So I didn't have to, the fact that no radio stations will play it, I don't blame them. It's too long. And yeah, but it didn't matter. So there you go.
Yeah, obviously when I knew I was having you on, I obviously know you as like a live artist. So I went and looked in your YouTube, and I saw like Passion Flower's got 19 million views, right?
Okay, has it?
On YouTube.
I'm still waiting for it to hit that 20. Really
yeah. You don't get the paycheck until it hits the big 20.
I wish there was anything in it, man. It's really, there's no money to be made, really. I don't know how people make a living YouTubing. I think it's mostly promo money, it's mostly kind of, having to do product stuff, advertising directly on stuff. It's tough.
Yeah, very, really tough. So, I mean, I guess your last album was in 2020. That still feels quite recent to me, but obviously that was like 3 years ago. So your last album, and you played quite a lot of this when I saw you, was The Faintest Idea, which is a fantastic album. So
thanks.
I commend you on that. I thought there's some great tracks on there, and you told some great stories. When I saw you live, you told some great stories about some of the tracks. I'd love to keep you here for hours on end to talk about every track, but obviously I don't want to keep you for too long. But I thought Dream Factories specifically was quite an interesting story, where you introduced the song but kind of spoke about how X Factor and Pop Idol had influenced that song, or influenced the industry.
Yeah, I hate them. You know what? So I got asked to go on, I think it was Britain's Got Talent. It was definitely a Simon Cowell one. My wife has been my manager most of my career, and she got a phone call from somebody from, I guess, the production company, ITV. It's such a long time ago, I can't remember now. And yeah, they said, "Oh, does Jon? We've seen his viral video. Does he want to go on Britain's Got Talent?" And she said, "No, he doesn't want to go on," because she knew that I wouldn't. So no, he doesn't want to do that. And then they all right, okay then. And they phoned back and said, "Look, we've talked to the producer, and we'd be happy for Jon to skip. We're happy to guarantee that he'll get to a certain stage in the competition." They actually said he'll definitely get through the first round or the first couple of rounds. So you have to come to the audition, but it's just a formality. And they actually said that, they really did. And so that actually made my wife quite angry, because she has done quite a lot of teaching in her life, and she taught at a stage school for years. So she taught singing and stuff to mostly kids and teenagers. And a lot of them wanted to go on Britain's Got Talent. And she even had a couple who did go on, certainly, I don't remember if it was Britain, I can't remember now, such a long time ago. But she had students who went on, singing competitions on telly, Pop Idol or whatever, through the ages, The Voice, whatever. And, they saw it as probably one of their best chances of being able to make a career out of singing, So the fact that it was a bit of a fix made her really genuinely angry for those kids who kind of put their dreams in it, and everybody else who enters those things. So I remember we actually contacted a newspaper and told them what they'd said to us. So I was in like the national news regarding that. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So Dream Factories is about those shows, because I really, really do fucking hate them myself. It's not that they're bad telly. I think they're probably pretty good telly. I just hate the way they kind of turn live music, which is something which is so important to me, and they turn it into something that's the opposite of what it should be. So for me, going to gigs since I was a kid, it's kind of like my safe place to be able to express myself emotionally. And I'm not just talking about if I'm on the stage. And to me, I'm not religious, so it's probably similar to when people go to church. It's this thing where you're in a room full of people, there's somebody up there telling you stuff about how they feel, whether it's, a band playing, it could even just be a band playing cover songs, or it could be like, I used to go and watch a lot of blues gigs, and loads of that would be really up-tempo, kind of dancing music, but then there'd be kind of sad tunes as well, or whatever. And, the audience are reacting to that, emotionally or however. And it is kind of sacred. To me, it's definitely spiritual, and, nobody's being judged either on the stage or off. Nobody's kind of saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be getting emotional here in public," because, it's not okay to do that. At gigs, you're allowed to do that. So yeah, whereas, on those TV shows, it's the opposite of that. It's not about kind of non-judgmentalism. It's literally about somebody on stage being literally judged. And the audience at home are kind of encouraged by the nature of the program to judge them as well and say whether they think they're good or shit, or whether they like them even as a person or not, And I hate that. And it's just really, really fucked up. Instead of being a sharing experience, it's about kind of isolation, and it's awful. Yeah, so I hate it. But there you go. I don't hate much, but I hate that.
I must say, your album's like a mixture of mostly your own material, but you do chuck in the odd cover, which seem like ingenious to me. How do you decide which song to cut? Is it literally just as simple as, I really like that song? Or is it like you hear it in your head and you're like, that will sound great if I can maybe do this with it?
Sometimes it's an emotional reason for a particular song. Maybe it's somebody that I know who wrote it, or maybe it's somebody's asked me to do it or something like that. Or sometimes it's because it's always going to be, I'm not going to cover something that I don't like, but sometimes it's because I think that I can do something with it that's different to what was already done. But then there'll be certain kind of just technical factors that a song would have to have for me to want to do it. Like, it'd have to have like a really strong melody that is going to be recognisable, because I'm probably going to change the song quite a lot. So if the melody isn't really strong, then people aren't going to recognise the song, even, especially if I'm playing an instrumental version or something. So certain kind of little technical things. But yeah, sometimes I just want to take it in a different place. It's something I'm working on at the moment. So I've been doing a few covers recently that I haven't released yet. You might have seen me do one or two live that I haven't released. I don't know. When you came to that gig, I can't remember exactly what I played that night. But so I'm working on that at the moment. And there's a thing which developed over the past kind of 10 years plus of guitarists doing covers. So acoustic guitarists doing like a solo version of a famous song. And it's a cool way to do it because it really shows off your technique. So if you're able to play like a famous song that's got like a cool bass line and a cool melody and maybe some other like a drum part and stuff, and you're able to do some of or all of that on one guitar, it's quite exciting for people to watch. But a lot of the ones that I've seen people release, I don't really like. They can be quite technical or quite boring. A lot of people kind of churn them out for the kind of views, and it's become it's an online thing. They're kind of making a living selling the guitar tab and stuff. But it's the artistry is not necessarily there, and a lot of people do that because it was me and others that started the ball rolling doing that a long time ago, and then it made me not want to do it because like everybody was doing it. But now actually looking at it going, actually I think I can do that better. But when I say better, I don't mean they'll actually be better. I just mean better for me. Like I'll like it more. I'll think that it's got more artistic value. Whether anybody else agrees is a completely different matter. So but I'm working on that, and it's really interesting to take on those songs. And the first person I always play it to is always my wife, and if she has an emotional reaction, then I know it's probably all right. And I made her cry with the last one that I played, so it's probably all right. Although whether she was crying in pain, I don't know.
Maybe. So, Jon, what kind of music are you into then? Like, obviously, I guess I can hear lots of different influences within your guitar playing and the way you sing. But I mean, what are you into? What does it for you?
You know what? I wrote a list for somebody recently. Somebody asked me what I was listening to at the moment. I wrote a list, so I'm trying to remember it. No, I can't. So recently, I've been listening to. You know what? I'm going to do, Steve, right now. So I have Spotify, like everybody. So
like everybody, right? Yeah.
I'm going to tell you. Can you look at what you played recently?
I think if you go into your search bar, it will tell you what you've searched for recently.
I'll tell you what I searched for. Yeah.
I don't think it will tell you it might not necessarily tell you what you've played, but I think it will give you.
Oh, that sucks. Oh, it sucks. I thought it might have a play history. I can see what albums I've recently added, can't I?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so what have I recently added? Some of them I don't know what they are because I haven't listened to them yet. So Peter Gabriel released a new single recently, so that's definitely been played a lot. So I've been listening to, I don't even know how to say his name, this guy, Tigran Hamasyan. Is he Albanian? I cannot remember. Oh man, I'm really ignorant. But anyway, he's a pianist. He's kind of jazz, basically. I guess it's jazz / modern classical. It's Tigran, then Hamasyan. Anyway, he's a genius. He's an absolute genius. It's amazing. His music is unbelievably incredible. A friend of mine told me about him, which is why I was listening to him. I've also been listening to, looks like I've recently been listening to Jon, the kind of mathsy rock band. I've been listening to Triple X Tentacion. You know who that is, right?
Do you know what? It doesn't ring a bell, but
I think he's the most played ever artist on Spotify.
Oh, really?
But he's I'm not totally sure about that, but certainly his songs are in the top 10.
Oh, wow.
He's got multiple songs. Yeah, it's XXX Tentacion. He's dead now. He had a very short, brutal life, but he was a genius. So I've been listening to him. Christine and the Queens released something, so I've been listening to them a lot. So yeah, that's recent listening, but I'm into like absolutely loads of stuff, and I tend to go through phases of getting obsessed with a particular genre or a particular style. I haven't actually done that for a while, but and it can be anything. So, I was obsessed with Carnatic music, which is a style from India. I've been obsessed with Chinese pop music. I've been obsessed with metal. I just will go through, French kind of romantic or late 19th century classical music. So I'll just go through phases of being really, really obsessed with a particular sound and a particular genre and wanting to find things that I like in that genre and kind of absorbing those sounds and those ideas and those musical ideas and those kind of moods and stuff. And then I just move on. But it never leaves you, and I still go back to those things.
Yeah, it's like you almost complete the level and then you're looking for your next kind of fix.
Yeah, it does. But it's up to you how far in depth you want to go. And I don't believe that you have to be some kind of great expert in something in order to have learned from it.
Absolutely. So, Jon, I always like to ask my guests what their first musical purchase was. So, do you remember what your first music purchase was and where you bought it?
Yeah, I think I do actually. So I've been asked before, and it was the soundtrack album for The Kids from Fame. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I got how old you are, so it's from the 80s, you know. Might even be quite early 80s. Oh, it's really old anyway. So for those who don't know, Fame, or it was a TV show called The Kids from Fame. I don't know, but it was about a music school. I think it might have been performing arts school. Yeah. With some of them actors as well. I can't remember.
I think they were.
And it was about these kind of teenagers, or early 20s, I guess, who were at this school in New York learning. Like, there was a cellist, there was this guy who played keyboards. He was like Jean-Michel Jarre. He had all these like synthesizers all around him that he built. There was a singer/dancer. There was all these, and they were all these different characters. It was like kind of a soap opera with music about them. And it's odd because, like, you know, then I went to music school and did that. So it had a massive influence on me, that program. I really, really, like, honestly, just wanted to be those people. I don't know how old I was, though. I think I would have been like, you know, 6 or something when I got that. So really young.
I think you might be a few years older than me, slightly. So I'm 42. I'll be 43 next month. So I think you might be slightly older. But Irene Cara, the woman who sang Fame, I know she passed away at the back end of last year.
Oh, right, okay.
Recently.
I didn't know that.
Which obviously was a massive shame.
Yeah, that's sad to hear, yeah.
So John, are you a big... This podcast is about you collating your fantasy festival. Are you a big fan of festivals? Do you go to many? I know, obviously, I saw a great YouTube video of you playing a guitar festival last year in Montreux.
Okay.
Which looked like a great experience for you. Yeah,
I mean, I love festivals, but it depends. I don't like a festival that's like really, really big and like a war zone in the campsite. I really don't like that. But I like festivals that are kind of have a community vibe. So sometimes it could be because they're a particular genre festival, or maybe they're a really small festival that not many people go to, or maybe, you know, there's some kind of angle to it which brings a community together. So metal festivals are awesome. They're really great because there's something special when it's a particular like niche and hobby, because metal isn't just like a style of music, it's people's kind of lifestyle with the way they dress, and it can be the thing that they know about and learn about. So it is a bit like a kind of hobby / lifestyle / musical taste, whatever. So you get these people together who are really happy to be there with like-minded people, and it's really cool to be a part of those kind of festivals. Punk festivals are the same. I don't get to play at punk festivals, but I played at metal festivals, but I don't get to play at punk festivals, but I've been to them. And yes, folk festivals could be cool too. So I really love that vibe, yeah. So I just like seeing loads of people in a place and everyone being happy and having, you know, good experience. That's cool.
And what about gigs, John? Do you have, as a kind of a watcher, so not on the stage, but as kind of someone absorbing the music, do you have a favourite gig or favourite gigs?
Well, that I've done in the past, you mean? No, not really. It's too hard to say, but there's certain places, there's things that I look back with pride because they're some amazing place. Yeah. So it's some beautiful, famous venue, somewhere amazing. Like I played the 100 Years Hall in Beijing. It was incredible. But there's also, I spent a lot of time playing pub gigs, many, many years when I was younger, playing just in pubs. And there's a pub in Keighley in Yorkshire, really close to where I live now, called the Cricketer's Arms. And I played, I don't know, a dozen times or probably more there, gigs. And it shut last year. It shut down, finally. It's funny, it's this pub, it was like an old terraced house, and the whole rest of the terrace that was just houses and other factories and other stuff has all been knocked down. And they're building like a new kind of shopping complex there. And the only bit that's still standing is the Cricketer's Arms pub, because they refused to leave. But eventually, you know, the landlord caved. After many years, he decided, you know, he wanted to retire anyway. So I went for their last day. Their closing ever day. They had a gig on, and I went and played. It was fucking carnage. It was absolute state, you know? But it was just amazing, because that was often a place that I would look back to as somewhere that I had amazing gigs, loads of fun. Sometimes it will be absolutely packed, but I've definitely played there before and it wasn't, and it's still, I just love it. I don't care, you know. And also, that place just became this one particular one that I remembered. I don't know why that one, but if I was on stage somewhere and I was nervous, or maybe I was just strung out generally because I was far away from home, maybe I hadn't slept, I hadn't had the opportunity to sleep, and maybe I was feeling mentally pretty dodgy, And then you get on stage somewhere big and far away, and suddenly somebody can be not nervous normally, but then when you're feeling bad anyway, when you're feeling anxious, getting on stage in front of a load of people doesn't help. And so I would kind of put myself in that pub, the Cricketer's Arms in Keighley. I would put myself there in my mind and suddenly feel kind of safe and secure and just say, well, it's no different here, really. It's a different place, but all I've got to do is the same thing that I did there. So
I'm sorry to see that's been knocked down. It sounds like a pub that had a lot of character.
It had a good run.
It had a good run. So, like I said, at the top of the podcast, the aim of the Fantastival Podcast is getting our guests to collate their fantasy festivals. So Jon gets to choose any 5 acts and gets to pick an encore, which all 5 of his acts will perform together at the end of his fantasy festival. So it's very simple for any first-time listeners. 5 acts take 5 time slots. So in the last episode of the podcast, I had Danny Tipping from The Kind on, and he created Kind Stock, and he had the Lars in his opening slot. In his Super Second slot, he had Teenage Fan Club playing Grand Prix in full. In his Midway Madness slot, he went for Otis Redding and had Booker T and the MGs back him. In his pre-headline slot, making their Fantastival debut, he picked Ride. And in his headline slot, he went for the Beatles. And then to finish his fantasy festival, we had all 5 of his acts perform Tomorrow Never Knows all together. So very, very simple concept.
Nice. Oh, it's quite an easy one as well. It's just one chord. I don't know if he's thinking about that practically. So it's just like a drone. It doesn't really have chords. Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yeah.
Fucking cool tune though. Paul McCartney played the drums on that. I thought, that's the legend in it, because it's a mad drum beat, and Chemical Brothers sampled it, but then it's got all these backwards guitar stuff on it. It's fucking amazing tune, that. Honestly, hair stands up on my arms when I hear that.
And so ahead of his time as well. So ahead of his time.
Amazing tune. Anyway, I can't believe somebody's picked the Beatles.
Do you know what? This is where...
What's everyone else supposed to do?
This is where the podcast comes into its own, because when I started this, I thought the Beatles...
I'm picking Bach.
I thought the Beatles would get picked every week, but it was only the 6th time they've been picked, so I'm sad enough to keep like a roster of how many times acts get picked.
Can I just pick musicians that I know who I know need the money?
Jon, it's your fantasy festival, mate. You can pick whoever you want, but before we do...
Okay, so tell me the slots one at a time, and I'll go through them one at a time.
Before we do that, we need to give your fantasy festival name, and we need to give it a venue. Now, I reckon, and it's completely up to you, I reckon we take it to the Cricketer's Arms. I reckon you've spoken about it so well, I reckon we should take it there, but...
Okay, so we'll do it at this pub. So there could be no more, at this festival, there can be no more than maybe a packed, dangerously packed 60 people at the whole festival. So I'm well into that, mate. That sounds fun. They did used to have a car park across the road, and they would put a festival in there. I just remembered. Anyway, so we'll do it at the Cricketer's Arms. I don't have a name for it for the festival, but we could call it the Community, which is what my community with a G.
Yes,
that's
mate.
It's what my Facebook group's called.
I love it.
I didn't name it. It was somebody else named it.
I love it.
But we can call it the Community.
Yeah, the Community. Then we're going to the Cricketer's Arms. The Commune. Yeah, absolutely. So
anyway, yeah.
You get five acts. So your first act get to play from 2:00 to 3:00. It can be anyone alive, dead, past, present, any genre of music. It doesn't have to be a guitar. It can be whoever you want it to see live.
Right, so I'm going to take that slot. Do people take the slot themselves? So they play themselves? If you're going to get to play with all these people at the end, there's no way I'm not doing that.
Amazing. All right, so you're going to take...
So there's no way that I'm missing out on playing with these people at the end. So I'll just take the early slot.
Brilliant.
Okay.
All right.
I'll warm it up, and I can like warm up the audience, introduce everybody. I'm hosting the festival. It's my whole, it's my festival that I've put on. So I'll play first, get everybody kind of feeling relaxed. I'll play really shit on purpose, so everybody else is going to have a good time after that.
Amazing. So Jon Gomm is your opening act. He's going to play from 2 to 3:00. It's going to be ace. First time Jon Gomm's been picked for a fantasy festival, believe it or not. So I'm looking forward.
I can't believe that.
I'm looking forward to that one. We're going to take a half-hour break, Jon, and in time for your Super Seconds act. You get to play from 3:30 to 4:30. So who would you have follow you on at Community?
Right, I think I'm going to have some instrumental music. So I think I'm going to pick... Holy moly. Oh, it's really hard. I think we're going to have a John Coltrane. Probably Love Supreme era band. But I'm not picky. But yeah, probably John Coltrane.
Awesome. And I guess why John Coltrane over other instrumentalists? Is it just the way you're feeling now, or anything that relates to you emotionally? Any memories you've got of that?
I think he's transportative, as a musician. Certainly that era that I mentioned when he's doing that kind of spiritually inclined stuff. It definitely is kind of music which is quite, because the thing about he was leaning towards free jazz at that point. That term, I don't think it really existed quite when he made that record, but so he was doing these tunes which were kind of deliberately meditations. They were supposed to be kind of spiritually, they're supposed to have an effect on the audience. That's what they were for. And they would also be improvised, like really, really heavily improvised. They're being created in the moment. And when that happens, the audience goes there with the person on stage in a really kind of visceral way. It can be quite scary almost. And you're really in the moment. Because you don't know what's going to happen next. You literally don't in the audience. So I think it would be really good. I think he would draw people in. And that would be, they would be kind of, also they just get to see fucking Jon Coltrane.
That's
it's
the
really
simple
good.
answer.
It's quite good at the saxophone. I don't know if you know.
It's decent.
Yeah.
All right, so Jon Coltrane is taking your Super Seconds act. First time Jon Coltrane's been picked for a fantasy festival as well, so loving your work so far. We'll take another half-hour break, and then that'll take us to 5 o'clock. So 5 till 6 is our Midway Madness slot. So, John, who are you going to have after Jon Coltrane?
I think we'll have a bit of bluegrass. So I'm going to have Chris Thile and the Punch Brothers. So the band is called Punch Brothers, and they're a bluegrass band. So banjo. Chris Thile himself is a mandolin / singer. Then double bass, fiddle, guitar, and they all just play into one microphone, gathered around one microphone, and they are inexplicably incredible. So they're all amazing virtuoso musicians, and Chris Thile has taken. I mean, he's a bluegrass musician, is what he grew up doing, but he has gone somewhere else. So he makes music that sounds like it's a cross between Baroque, kind of prog, or indie. There's kind of funk elements. It's incredible. It's really, he can just play anything. He can just do anything as a musician. So he does. So he's really, really amazing. And he's incredibly fun as well. They're an incredibly entertaining band as well. So, yeah. So probably nobody's heard of Punch Brothers who's listening because they're not that well known over here. But yeah, he's brilliant. So yeah, go and see them sometime if you get a chance. They do come over.
Oh, great. Have you been lucky enough to see them yourself then, John?
Oh, yeah, I met Chris, who's the band leader, who was playing solo at a festival I played at in Estonia last year. And he had no idea who I was. And I just kind of introduced myself and just said, he was headlining the Friday night and I headlined the Saturday night. And I got in to the country early so I could see him play. I've never seen him play solo. And then we went for dinner with like the promoters and stuff. And so I was just completely fanboying. And I just said to him, really sorry, but I'm just a massive, massive, massive fan of yours. But he ended up wanting to find out about me and then checking out my music and stuff as well. And then he came to the UK earlier this year, so I went over to see him in Manchester. And, he put me on the guest list. And literally 60 seconds after he got off stage, I got a text on my phone which just said, hug time from Chris. I was like, I love this guy. He's so nice. He's such a nice man. So yeah. So I have been lucky enough to see them play and also lucky enough to just get to know Chris Thile a little bit. But he is a fucking genius. Like another level of music. I don't know what he's even doing. He in fact got the MacArthur Genius Grant when he was a kid. Wow. Which is like £1 million grant in America that they give out to kind of the next great genius. It could be any field, science, economics, anything, but they gave it to a mandolin player.
I look forward to checking him out. It sounds absolutely fantastic. So Chris Thile and the Punch Brothers are your Midway Madness act. They're going to play from 5 till 6, so 3 acts down, 2 acts left. Your next act is your pre-headline act. So it gets to play from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So John, who's going to be your pre-headline act?
Oh man, hang on. I just need to put the next 2 in the right order. I just have a really solid.
Do you know what? I kind of
okay, so we're going to have
pre-headline.
Pre-headline, I'm going to have B.B. King.
Pre-headline B.B.
Yeah, I feel like I've said it now. So pre-headline, we're going to get B.B. King, who is one of the best live acts. He's probably the best single live performer, best I've ever seen. His voice is amazing. His guitar playing is amazing, but the delivery it's like watching a preacher, except he's not preaching, which makes it a lot better. It's like there's like an incredible emotional power in what he does. There's also humour. He's just absolutely incredible. Like the way that he manipulates the emotions of an audience, and also gets them dancing. Everything, just complete master and massively underrated singer. I think because he's such a great guitarist, people don't put him in the same bracket as your kind of, Al Green or Otis Redding you mentioned earlier, or Marvin Gaye or whatever. People don't put him in that bracket of soul singers, which is what he was, and he's really way up there. He really, really is that good. So yeah, B.B. King.
Great shout. B.B. King's first time he's been picked for Fantasy.
I met him once as well. And he was like just this big freaking... He was like Santa. He really was. He was amazing. He was so nice. I was probably about 15. And I went backstage. I played... He said, my dad was interviewing him for a local newspaper. And, my dad said, this is my son. He's a guitarist. And, BB was letting me play his guitar backstage and all that stuff. It was so nice. He was so lovely.
That's amazing. To meet him as a 15-year-old as well. It's great when you hear that you meet your idols and they're not dicks. Like,
yeah, I've had the opposite. I have met some that have been extremely disappointing, and yeah, or I've got to know people who have been heroes, and the more I've got to know them, the more I've wished that. I'm not naming any names though.
No, I wouldn't ask you to. This is a nice podcast, John. I wouldn't. Yeah, exactly, I wouldn't dish the dirt. So, B.B. King plays from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. We'll take one more break, and then your headliner gets to play for 2.5 hours from 8:30.
2.5 hours. Okay, right. I'm glad I saved that, because B.B. King wouldn't want to do 2.5 hours. Jesus, no. You know what? Nah, he's no good for that long. It's not. I don't think he would do that. A lot of times, blues guys play quite a short set. It's quite surprising. It depends what they do, but he's more erring on the short side of things. So yeah, it's a really tough one. I don't know. I'm gonna go for somebody that I've seen myself again. I've seen most of these people, so I'm gonna go for Radiohead for 2.5 hours, because there's not many people. Also, if they had to play 2.5 hours, they'd surely have to bang out some stuff from the Bends, which they tend to not play anymore. So they'd have to bang that classic stuff out as well. So get a mixture, hopefully, if they had to play for that long. But they've definitely got the material to do 2.5 hours. And also, again, people who've never seen Radiohead live, they are amazing live band. Like, I remember the first time I saw them, I'd been a fan for a long time, and I never got a chance to see them. And I was expecting them to be quite boring on stage, because their music is quite, cerebral a lot of the time. But holy shit, they're so exciting to watch. They're so exciting. You've got Johnny Greenwood is a fucking space cadet, so he's the lead guitar player. In as much as they have like a lead and rhythm guitar player or whatever. But he also does keyboard stuff, and he'll have like often huge analog synthesizers with loads of plugs hanging out of them on stage. And he's kind of just doing wizardry, just making sonic wizardry on stage all the time. But he seems to be completely in his own world as he does it. But that's really enthralling. Whereas Tom York is an incredible performer. He's really engaging. He's like really exciting. He's very intense, but he's quite funny as well. And also he dances on stage, and he dances like Gollum from Lord of the Rings getting angry, except it is fucking cool. That makes it sound like it's not cool, but it's fucking really cool. And he's just, he's amazing. He's such a great singer, such a great, musician generally. And, their songs, they just have so many bangers, but they're kind of epic as well. I don't know. Yeah, that'll do. That's a good enough gig. I think I'm happy with that. I'd definitely go. That's
a good gig. I mean, obviously, I know you've covered High and Dry. Have you had contact with radio? Have you been lucky enough to have?
No, I never have, no. I would like to. It will be fun. It will be fun to do that, but I'm quite scared of Tom York. I find him quite scary. He's very, very intense. He seems to be.
Yeah.
And, I'd be too scared, I think. And I would love to meet him. Of course I would. But, yeah.
Well, at Community, it's going to happen, right? Because they are headlining it, and you're the opening act. So Radiohead are going to play to 11, and then they're going to bring back out B.B. King, Chris Steele and the Punch Brothers, John Coltrane, and yourself are going to come back out, and you all get to play one song at the Cricketers' Arms that's going to blow the roof off the place once again.
Yeah. So what do we go for? Something? Do you think we should go for something epic, or do you think we should go for something fun? I don't know.
I think you have
to
find...
Tomorrow Never Knows is a really, really good one, because it's both epic and it's really fun at the same time. But I don't know. I think I'd probably just like to go really... You've got Radiohead. I reckon I want to do like Comfortably Numb, because Radiohead can hold that as a thing, and then all the other guys would when it gets to I don't know if how familiar you are with that song. So it has
I know the song.
It has two vocalists. So it's got Roger Waters doing "Is there anybody in there?" all that stuff with his kind of creepy voice, and that he does. And then it's got David Gilmour does the beautiful kind of soaring chorus vocal. Imagine B.B. King. And it's got a guitar solo. It's got the kind of epic guitar solo, but John Coltrane can have that. And obviously I'm on stage as well. I don't know what I'll do, just listen, but I'll just be there. I'm actually regretting playing now because I just want to be in the audience. But so I don't know. But I think that would be really, really good. It would raise the roof off. But I think sometimes it's nice to finish with. The thing is, right, if you do something that's too much fun as well, it's not going to be the last song. As I've discovered from gigging myself over the years. So if I want to stop playing and don't want to get like a second encore, I know what to do in order to avoid that happening because I'm really tired or whatever, or I just feel like the gig's reached a conclusion. Then I will do something where I know this is going to be the last song. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not because it's bad, but because it's an emotion. So it's a moment that will leave people emotionally spent and not geared up wanting the next thing.
Yeah.
So that's my whole vibe.
Great shout. So let's lock your fantasy festival in before you change your mind. And so we've got the community.
Okay.
It's taking place at Cricketers Arms. Opening act, we've got Jon Gomm.
Do you know what? They do a cracking pie and peas there. So
Amazing.
I'm going to be really happy with that. The beer's insanely good as well.
I reckon this is by invite only, by invite of Jon Gomm only.
Yeah, I'll have to be invite, yeah.
Only 60 people in, and I think you get free peas when you go in as well. I think we'll have to do that. Amazing. So your opening act, we've got John Coltrane after you, then Chris Steely and the Punch Brothers, followed by B.B. King, and your headline act, Radiohead.
That's pretty good, man.
Really good.
Has Radiohead been picked before? They must have been.
Radiohead's fifth time they've been picked. So fifth time, so not too many. David Bowie leads.
They deserve that. They deserve that. It's about time they finally got some credit as well.
And it'd be good to see him play some stuff from the Bend as well, because I'm with you on that one. Don't hear.
I love that record. I think that's probably my favourite Radiohead album. In fact, it is. I know without doubt that it is. That's my favourite Radiohead album. But I think they feel that it was too kind of, they hadn't really developed their sound at that point. I think OK Computer is when they started to find something they thought of as being their own sound. But I don't really agree. I think the Bends is just like insanely good, and it's just got great songs and it's got great guitar riffs, and I do like a guitar riff.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. The Bends is a fantastic album, and so that is your Fantastival locked in. Amazing stuff. Before we finish, John, what do the next few months look like for you? I know you've got a mini tour coming up in the UK imminent. Well,
yeah. So the next couple of months, I've got a UK stuff. I've got Portugal first. I'm going to Portugal the weekend after next. I've got about 10 shows in Italy. I've got a festival in Germany, and I've got to go to California for a big show there, which is called NAMM, the North American Music. Oh, I don't know what the last M stands for. But it's a huge, massive show that happens every year in Anaheim, in California. I've never been before, but yeah, I'm going this year, I think. And yeah, so it's quite busy up until the summer. I don't really know about the summer because I haven't really got my finger out and booked myself into any festivals, so I don't know. When I say book myself, I've been through some kind of changes kind of in my team, as it were, people that I work with. So yeah, I don't know if I'll be doing many festivals this summer. And then I don't know about the autumn either. I haven't made any plans yet because I'm working on new material. I want to see how that happens. And I have some ideas of things I want to do live, which is a bit different from what I've done before. So, we'll just see. But the next couple of months are really hectic. Great
plans here. So, John, I know we talked about social media, and I guess kind of the hindrance of it, but you are on all social media, so if people want to keep up...
yeah, I do love it. Yeah, I do absolutely love social media. But no, I think it can be... people feel compelled to post a lot when they're musicians, but I tend to just do it when I feel like it anyway. So, yeah, but come and find me. I'm on most of them. So, yeah, come and find me.
It can be found. Obviously, you've got a YouTube channel as well, which I think is so worth checking out because the stuff you do... I think it's easy for people who haven't heard you before maybe to go, oh, he's got a band behind him. But I think the key element to take away is it's you, right?
Yeah, so it is.
It's just one person.
It's just me and a guitar, just making all those noises, yeah. No looping and stuff. I've nothing against looping. I just don't enjoy doing it. So I hate hearing myself play, and if you loop, you hear yourself play while you're fucking playing. So.
And I think it's probably key to mention that you've only got the one album on Spotify, right? So
I have, yeah. I might put another one on soon. I don't know, one of my older ones. But yeah, Spotify. It's just the faintest idea is on there. Plus that song "Passion Flower" that you mentioned before is also on there. So, but I will put some more stuff on there soon.
But if people do want to get a physical, they can do that, right? So they go onto your website. So you've got a great website that I was looking at earlier.
Yeah, you can buy vinyl, you can buy CDs if you have a CD player, you can buy downloads if you want to do that, which is still a thing. Like, it's just the same as streaming, except you own it. It's on your phone. You can email it to people, whatever. I don't mind. So people can get hold of my music digitally that way. But I am on other streaming services. It's just Spotify. I kind of held out about not wanting to release much stuff on there because they really do pay almost nothing for streaming. It's tiny, and it's like something like 4 times less than some of the other streaming platforms. 4 times less.
Right,
It's like, what? Yeah, they're really, So it's, I can't remember the name of the owner. He tried to buy Arsenal.
Oh, it's Swedish gent, wasn't it? It's a Swedish name.
Yeah, but he also makes like software for like corporate military, like weapons and stuff. I don't know if he's really that nice of a guy, Steve.
He's probably listening. He's probably listening and feeling really hurt that we're, accusing him of not being the greatest guy.
I'm sorry. Well, you can always get I think he's called Daniel. You can always get in touch with me if he was happened to be listening. That would be so nice. Just get in touch with me and fucking explain yourself, sunshine.
And I think with that brings this podcast to its natural conclusion. So thanks to everyone for listening to the 121st episode of the Fantastival Podcast. If you've enjoyed this one, please subscribe, give the podcast a review. You can do that on iTunes, or you can rate the show on Spotify. Jon is on social media. This podcast is on Twitter, so make sure to give us a follow at FantastivalP if you don't do so already. And you can always email the podcast, if you like, at fantastivalpodcast@outlook.com. Jon has spoken about some great acts. I'll try and get some tracks from you, Jon, and I'll make a little Spotify playlist to try and give some of those artists a bit of a visibility to some listeners if they haven't heard of those artists before. So that will be in the episode description if we get around to doing that. So Jon, mate, 121 done. It's been an honour to speak to you. I hope I made you feel a bit better after your recording session.
Yeah, I feel much more relaxed now. Thank you very much. I'm going to go and have a shower because, I've been hyper-focused. I just kind of haven't really done any basic self-care for a couple of days. I really, really need a shower. I'm really glad you're not in the room with me right now. I'm going to go and have a shower and I'm going to go to bed. So thank you so much for having me, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure to be with you in your room. I can see filled with music and stuff. It's really, really cool. So thanks for making this podcast as well because, people making stuff for the love of it about music to try and share music they love with the world is really amazing, and I'm very grateful. So thank you.
That means a lot. Thank you very much, Jon. So I'll be back next week with episode 122. So please make sure to join me. But until then, stay safe, my Fantastival friends. Please continue to spread the word, and that word is Fantastival. Thanks for listening.